That generator is a blatant violation of our community's aesthetic standards and acoustic regulations, Mr. Harris. You have precisely 48 hours to arrange for its professional removal, or daily fines will commence at $200, and they will compound without mercy. Susan Thompson delivered her ultimatum from my front porch on that sweltering August afternoon, her pastel floral dress plastered against her from the humidity, clipboard clutched like a scepter of divine right. Her tone carried that peculiar blend of saccharine politeness and ironclad authority that only the most dedicated HOA enforcers can muster, cutting straight through the peaceful hum of the neighborhood. Behind her sat my brand-new Kohler whole house generator on its freshly poured concrete pad, a quiet, reliable guardian I'd installed with every intention of keeping it discreet. To her, though, it was an eyesore, an affront, a declaration of rebellion against the perfect suburban order she policed so zealously. Sweat glistened on her upper lip while her eyes remained icy and unyielding. This wasn't a neighborly chat or even a formal notice. It was a decree from on high, issued by a woman whose power derived solely from a laminated badge, a stack of bylaws, and an insatiable need to control every blade of grass and every decibel within her domain. The sheer gall of it, escalating immediately to threats and penalties without so much as asking a single question, left me momentarily speechless. I'd served in combat zones where rules were stark and enemies straightforward. This felt like a different kind of warfare, petty, personal, and cloaked in paperwork. If you've ever clashed with an overreaching HOA board or endured a neighbor who treats the rulebook like holy scripture, you already understand the slow-burning frustration. But stay with me. This tale builds to moments that will make your blood boil and, eventually, bring a grim smile of satisfaction. The decision to install that generator had deep roots, born from terror rather than convenience. My daughter Sophia, just 8 years old and the absolute center of our universe, had been diagnosed the previous spring with a rare autoimmune disorder. The specialist used phrases like chronic management and lifelong vigilance. Her biologic medication required strict refrigeration, 36 to 46 degrees Fahrenheit, no exceptions. A single spoiled vial was worth more than my first decent car, and a missed dose risked to flare up severe enough to hospitalize her for weeks, maybe longer. Emily and I had lived under a low hum of anxiety ever since. We kept backup coolers packed with ice packs, installed door alarms on the fridge, set up temperature alerts on our phones. But we live in the heart of Tornado Alley and thunderstorm country in the Midwest, where the power grid is aging, storms grow fiercer each year, and outages are no longer rare anomalies. We'd already endured 3 blackouts in the prior 12 months, the worst stretching nearly 8 hours. During that one, around 2 a.m., I'd loaded Sophia's cooler into the truck, plugged it into the cigarette lighter, and driven desperately through dark streets, searching for any 24-hour pharmacy willing to store her life-saving drugs. Holding that cooler on my lap like a fragile newborn, I made a silent promise. Never again would we be so vulnerable. As a retired Army combat engineer, my training was simple. Identify the threat, engineer the solution, execute without hesitation. The unreliable grid was now a direct hazard to my child's survival. After weeks of meticulous research, comparing fuel efficiency, noise ratings, transfer switch reliability, I chose a premium Kohler standby unit with automatic startup. It ran at a documented 61 decibels under full load, quieter than normal conversation or a dishwasher. Expensive? Absolutely. But for Sophia's safety, price was irrelevant. I approached the HOA process methodically. I downloaded the full covenants, conditions, and restrictions, a tome of dense legalese, and read every section of modifications, noise, and exterior equipment. Generators weren't explicitly prohibited. To cover myself, I drafted a formal notification letter, full specifications, licensed installers' credentials and insurance, a detailed site plan showing placement behind the house, shielded by mature holly bushes. And, most critically, A letter from Sophia's pediatric rheumatologist explaining the medical necessity in plain, unambiguous terms. I sent it certified mail with return receipt. The green card came back signed in Susan's unmistakable flourish. 2 full months passed in silence. According to the HOA's own bylaws, architectural review non-response within 30 days constituted automatic approval. I had proof in hand, receipt, timeline, documentation. I believed I was bulletproof. The installation crew did exemplary work. Underground lines, precise pad, unit positioned exactly as planned. When they ran the initial test, I stood on the porch straining to hear it over the cicadas. A soft, steady purr. The sound of security. The sound of a father's peace of mind. 2 days later, Susan appeared with her clipboard and her fabricated violations. Unapproved concrete shade, insufficient landscaping buffer. She hadn't reviewed my submission. She'd simply seen something new and reacted with territorial fury. In that moment, the stakes crystallized. This wasn't about gray tones or shrubbery. It was about a father's right to protect his family from a grid that could fail at any moment. Susan Thompson had drawn a line in the sand. I would not cross back over it. The first fine arrived in a crisp envelope emblazoned with the HOA logo in pretentious gold foil. $200 for uncured prohibited mechanical installation, with daily compounding threatened. Emily read it over my shoulder in the kitchen, her face draining of color. John, this is madness. $200 a day? We can't sustain that. The tremor in her voice, the very vulnerability the generator was meant to eliminate, hardened my resolve. This isn't a fine, I told her. It's blackmail. That evening, I converted the dining table into a war room. Certified mail receipts, doctor's letter, install plans, noise specs, highlighted bylaws. My first countermove was a formal appeal, methodical, evidence-based, devoid of emotion. I attached the new acoustic engineer report I'd commissioned. Peak 58 decibels at Susan's property line during self-test, well below the municipal 65 decibel residential limit. The board's response was a masterpiece of evasion. The Architectural Review Committee has reviewed your appeal and finds it without merit. Aesthetic and placement concerns persist. Signed by the full board, but Susan's influence was unmistakable. More fines followed. $50 for non-existent concrete hue variance. $75 for visual contamination despite existing buffer. She was inventing rules on the fly. Fines climbed past $2,000. Emily grew weary, suggesting we plant extra bushes to appease her. I looked down the hallway towards Sophia's room, where she slept peacefully and felt something cold settle in my chest. No, I said quietly. This isn't about landscaping. It's about who controls our home. If we cave now, she'll own us forever. The neighborhood turned chilly. Neighbors at the mailbox offered tight smiles and hurried away. At the community pool, I overheard one of Susan's allies spreading tales of my industrial monstrosity, ruining the peace. Isolation set in, until Mike Anderson, a former Marine with a high and tight and a no-nonsense demeanor, walked straight into my open garage one Saturday. John Harris? Mike Anderson. What Susan's pulling on you is garbage. Count me in. Relief flooded through me. Mike had his own history. Susan once tried fining him $2,000 over a basketball hoop for his boys. He fought back with city codes and shamed her into retreat at a public meeting. Her game is intimidation, he explained. She targets people she thinks will fold. But you're not folding, are you? Word spread quietly. Mrs. Ellis, a gentle widow 2 doors down whose husband Henry relied on constant oxygen, approached me nervously one evening. Mr. Harris, we support you. That woman tried forcing us to remove Henry's wheelchair ramp, called it an eyesore. Our son, a lawyer, threatened ADA action and she backed off. We've considered a generator ourselves, but after seeing what she's doing to you, we're afraid. The fight had grown bigger than my family. Mike, Mrs. Ellis's lawyer's son, and I'd build a dossier, not just defending me, but exposing Susan, unauthorized garden gnomes, peeling exterior paint, a commercial freezer in her garage violating her own non-residential equipment rule. Financial records showed HOA funds funneled into legal fees tied to her personal crusades. When fines reached $4,000, I contacted Bob Jenkins, old Army JAG officer, now a sharp real estate litigator. After I laid out the medical necessity, certified correspondence, fabricated violations, and escalating harassment, Bob paused. "John, she didn't break rules. She handed you a gift-wrapped federal case. This is beautiful." We sent a series of measured legal letters, demanding point-by-point justifications under state law, invoking ADA and Fair Housing Act protections for Sophia's disability, requesting 3 years of architectural review records to prove selective enforcement. Susan's responses were arrogant gold, explicitly stating aesthetics trumped medical needs, refusing records as burdensome. Each signed reply became courtroom ammunition. Then the forecast turned ominous. A Category 3 hurricane spun toward the Gulf, projected to slam our county with eye-wall winds. Evacuations issued, but our brick home on high ground was defensible. Susan sent an emergency newsletter, bold red reminder that acoustic statutes remain in effect during outages. No unapproved generators allowed. Maximum fines and legal action will follow. She was weaponizing the storm against me. The storm hit after dark, horizontal rain, shrieking winds, a transformer exploding in blue sparks down the block. Total blackout. 3 seconds of silence. Then the soft click of the transfer switch. Lights flickered back on. Air conditioner hummed. Refrigerator purred. Sophia's eyes widened. "Daddy, the magic box is working." I held her close, grateful beyond words. Outside, the street was pitch black. My house glowed alone, a beacon in the chaos. The outage stretched into days. Food spoiled, phones died, heat became oppressive. On the first evening, a silhouette shuffled up the driveway. Susan, hair disheveled, silk robe damp with sweat, desperation etched on her face. "John, it's awfully dark. My phones are dead. I need to coordinate the community response." A beat. "And my freezer, Omaha Steaks delivery, special ice cream. It's all going to ruin." The entitlement was staggering. While Henry Ellis fought for every breath and families sweated in the dark, she mourned luxury groceries. "I'm sorry, Susan," I said evenly. Running extension cords creates overload risks, fire hazards, code violations. Manufacturer guidelines prohibit it. Liability is too high. Then, softly, the rules are the rules. They exist to protect the community. Her face flushed crimson. She opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing left to say. I closed the door gently, leaving her in the darkness she'd cultivated. I ran heavy-duty cords to the Ellis home for Henry's oxygen concentrator. The relief on Mrs. Ellis's face was worth more than any fine reversal. Then to Mike's for his boy's fridge. My place became an informal hub. Neighbors dropping by to share updates, offer debris help, express gratitude. The narrative flipped. I was no longer the troublemaker. I was the prepared neighbor stepping up. Susan watched from her blinds, isolated and furious. On day 3, she charged across lawns toward my cord to the Elises, screaming about trip hazards and bylaw violations. Mrs. Ellis stepped on her porch. "Touch that cord, and I'll have you arrested for reckless endangerment. It's keeping my husband alive." Mike held up his phone, recording. "Go on, Susan. Explain the bylaws while Henry struggles to breathe. This'll look great online." Murmurs rose from gathering neighbors. "Leave him alone. He's helping people. What is wrong with you?" Susan looked around, authority evaporating. She stormed back inside, doors slamming like a final punctuation. Power returned late that night with a citywide surge. Lights blazed, ACs roared, but the neighborhood had changed forever. Bob filed suit. Breach of fiduciary duty, harassment, selective enforcement, ADA/fair housing discrimination, reckless endangerment. We notified the HOA's D&O insurance carrier. Willful misconduct exclusions meant personal liability for board members. Panic ensued. A board member called, stammering apologies. Susan handled everything. We didn't know the full medical details. I cut him off. "You signed the letters dismissing a child's health for visual integrity." Your names are on record. A petition-triggered emergency meeting packed the clubhouse. Mike presented evidence, played the meltdown video. I stood last, voice steady, reading their own words aloud. The board is not bound by individual medical requests that compromise visual integrity. A collective gasp swept the room. Motion for no confidence in President Susan Thompson. Seconded instantly. Vote. Near unanimous removal. She sat frozen as her kingdom crumbled. Settlement followed swiftly. All fines rescinded. Public apology in the newsletter. Bylaws rewritten to protect medical equipment with clear processes. Reimbursement of my costs. $5,000 donation to Sophia's Disease Foundation presented at the next barbecue. Susan became a ghost. Former allies avoided her. Neighbors ignored her. Months later, a moving van appeared. She directed loaders with diminished bluster, then drove away for good. At the community barbecue under clear skies, the new president, a calm retired teacher, presented the oversized check in Sophia's name. Warm applause followed. That evening on the back porch, sunset painting the sky gold, Sophia chased fireflies in the yard, her laughter ringing free and clear. The generator hummed softly in its place, no longer a battleground, but a quiet testament to standing firm. We protected our family, helped our neighbors, and dismantled a small tyranny. Justice wasn't abstract. It lived in that carefree sound echoing through the twilight. What do you think of the whole saga? Have you ever dealt with an overbearing HOA, a power-abusing neighbor, or any form of petty injustice that escalated into something bigger? Do you believe standing up to bullies is always worth the fight, even when it risks escalation, financial strain, or community tension? Or should people sometimes just comply to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd genuinely like to hear your experiences and where you draw the line on fighting back. Let's talk about it.